What's up, everybody? It's Jules. We're back. Brew Crew Podcast, Episode 8, joined by Chev. Chev, what's good?
Hey, Julian.
And Oak.
What's up?
Yo! We're back for another exciting episode of the Brew Crew Pod. And we got some cool things to talk about. Chev, what's on the docket for today?
I think we're going to be discussing, we tried to get everyone together last week for a game night that went relatively well. We're going to talk about Julian's favorite card, Blood Moon. And then, as we're getting closer to Zendikar, which I think comes out September 26th-ish, around there, I think is when the fall set lands.
In like exactly a month.
Yeah, exactly. So we should be seeing spoilers in a couple of weeks, but we'll talk about, what we kind of want from that set, what we're all looking forward to, and why it's the Eldrazi.
I think we might disagree later on, but first let's talk about game nights with the boys, which is something that we are hoping to make an institution here at the Brew Crew, especially to get everyone together now that we've all settled in various regions of the country and also are just trapped inside because of pandemic things. So, Chev, why don't you tell everybody how we set this thing up and what we did?
Yeah. So we haven't been able to play Commander, which, as some of you guys may know, is one of the formats that, as a group, we tend to play the most. So it's definitely led to a lull in our ability to kind of bling out our decks, our excuses to buy new cards, and so we really need to be able to get together and play again, and, because it's fun to hear from these guys every once in a while, not on a podcast. So we started looking at the tools we could use, and decided that we would try out Spell Table. For those of you that aren't aware, Spell Table kind of came onto the scene with Command Fest Online this year. It's basically a service that you use to connect using webcams kind of streamed over your cards, and then think of it like Zoom for playing Paper Magic. It does make some strategies a little bit more annoying, say like playing your opponent's cards or like token clones or things like that, but you make do in the best possible way. Otherwise, it's a fantastic thing that we're hoping to use a little bit, even if Julian's webcam was a little bit spotty this time. But hopefully one day he'll get a good enough one. Took him a while to get a headset too, if I don't recall. Right, Julian?
Yeah, that's true. I was late to the party. Speaking of making things difficult, though, and playing other people's cards, Chev, you played a lot of Eric's cards when you cast Oblivion Sower. Which is
the lands.
A staple in one of your favorite decks.
No, of course. I mean, like, of all the things, you can always find extra lands around. I thought you were going to say the difficult thing that we found was from the Kozilek deck playing Emrakul the Promised End and taking control of Eric's turn. In a way that everyone else couldn't see, sort of thing. But yeah, again, it's like I think it was Hipsters posted an article a little while ago about like strategies you should maybe not use as much while playing in this sort of like pseudo online virtual play space, just because they do get more annoying. I might have forgotten that with Emrakul and Oblivion Sower.
I mean, that's a thing that you've had together for a while. That's kind of your pet deck, if I'm not mistaken. So
yeah,
you can't be blamed. I can blame you though for countering many of my spells over the course of many turns.
I think that is the most work that Kozilek has ever done for me in a given game. Or maybe it's just as I've been forced to come up with new ideas for decks on the regular as being part of the Brew Crew, and I'm more aware of the abilities on my cards, but I don't think Kozilek has ever countered as much as he did in that one game. And especially with Sensei's out to just kind of like tutor, it's not real, but getting the top 3 cards and at least trying to find something with the right converted mana cost definitely helped me stop you from pulling shenanigans like trying to kill my Titans, which is just not allowed.
So what you're saying is this game you actually decided to read your cards and come in with a strategy as opposed to sowing chaos, as is the norm.
That is true, yes. I came in, I read my cards as they entered the battlefield, and it's surprising how much more fun and effective you can be if you know what your cards do, Julian.
I only know what one card does, Chev, and that card is Blood Moon. That's the only card that I know what it does.
Why don't you enlighten
I thought you were
going
to say Void Winnower.
What'd you say?
Oh, all right, two cards. Void Winnower and Blood Moon, my 2 favorite cards.
Yep.
Yeah, I learned the unfortunate lesson that you really should not be as greedy and play a 5-color deck when one of your playgroup members, Oak, is a renowned
Only
mono
plays
red player. Pretty much only plays red. And somehow always seems to have Blood Moon on turn 3 for me. So this has happened.
Only when you're playing Niv Mizzet.
I mean, my
my
greediest
There's
and
a
only
mythos
5-color
to what Oak
Yeah.
always has access to, and it will always be Senseis by turn 3 in most decks, and then Blood Moon apparently
Right.
has extra hurdles to jump through. But the consistency
Yep.
does lead to some confusion as to what god Oakley made a sacrifice to prior to his Magic career.
Well, I promise you it was a red one.
Perforos. Perforos. He's just
Yep.
over there banging his hammer around.
Maybe Perf. Maybe
Yeah.
Karanos. You never know.
Oh, Karanos is pretty cool too. Oak, what decks? Why don't you tell the viewers what decks you were playing and what you were finding successful and not so successful?
Yeah, so we had 2 games. My first game was with my Omnath, newest Omnath. Something I had sort of, I think I spoke about this last time, but attempted to adapt into a Brawl deck that I've been also running on MTGA. But yeah, Omnath deck, ton of fun. Probably my favorite 3-color combo teamer. And I think I won in a way that very few people were expecting. I did the old Rude Awakening trick where we turn all our lands into elementals, but then rather than attacking, I just copied my Omnath about approximately 5 times and did
A lot of damage.
Yeah, around 15 damage 5 times. Probably more than that, actually. I'm pretty sure I had like upwards of 18 lands out at the time.
Yes.
Yeah, so that was the first game, which I thought went pretty well. I don't know about you guys.
It was definitely
I know
concerning.
Eric's
I've
not
never
here with us.
seen Oakley draw and play more lands, and I know that's the strategy of the deck, but generally I would say Oakley is land averse. So seeing a complete shift in doctrine was a little unsettling, to say the least.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, when the lands make my guys bigger, and I can play a land and I can sack it. Julian, I'm sure you know all about this in your Tatiova deck, but you play a land, you sack it, you draw a card, you draw another card. It's pretty nice.
The reoccurring value.
Yeah. So yeah, in our first game, Eric was playing his mono red, not the competitive version, but the Sir Kara deck, and I just couldn't let that go, or I couldn't let that stand as Eric being the mono red player. So the second game, I had to bring in.
That's right. There was 2
good old
mono red decks
Feldon.
in that second game.
Yup, and one of them was playing Blood Moon, and I did play it turn 3.
I personally had no problems with that.
um,
I thought that was perfect when I was playing Kozilek.
Yeah. Oh, see, I did too, but then Eric just had to go and remove it, didn't he?
I think at one point,
He
wasn't
just had to
Void
go and remove
Winnower
it.
out at the same time as Blood Moon? Or at least for a turn. Then I think someone got upset with Void Winnower. I don't know why.
That's possible.
Uh,
That's possible.
I can't remember. I remember I didn't do a whole lot of. I was hitting my land drops, which was good. I was like sitting around 6 or 7 mana, but I just was not doing anything. Luckily, I was also not really getting attacked that much. I think I had maybe taken 5 or 6 damage. Actually, no, I did. I assembled one of my favorite combos potentially, which was I managed to get a Baleful Strix out under Blood Moon, and then on turn 4 or 5, I was able to put out Conjurer's Closet because it's a colorless card. So I was just hitting Oak for 1, and then blinking my Baleful Strix and drawing cards. It was a great time, really. And then
Yeah.
Eric eventually realized that he needed my help because he is the lowly Voltron player and I was the control player, and he was like, I need you to do something about this. So he Chaos Warped the Blood Moon, and I started
Playing Magic
I
again.
came in and started blasting.
I'd like to give a special shout out to Enchanter's Bane too, which I think with Eric's Sunbird's invocation
did
now, I
murder
think
him.
did a total of like probably 30 plus damage to him over the course of the game, which was pretty awesome.
Easily. He would not let that thing go. I could
Nope.
not believe how long he held on to it.
Absolutely.
Especially with the amount of times that stuff got blowed up, or I'm pretty sure I cast probably 3 Wraths that game, and I was like, dude, you gotta let this thing go. Like you need to rebuild and like just set up, and you're killing yourself.
Yep.
Yeah.
But I think that sums up. Were there any other plays we kind of wanted to mention? Anything that was particularly cool? Or I think we covered most of the bases. Julian's favorite memory, of course, being the Blood Moon and then the reoccurring Baleful Strix. Is that what it is?
Yeah, the Baleful Strix. I think there was a few things that we learned. One, Chev having a lot of mana and then just being able to cast Kozilek over and over and over again, even every time that it got killed, mostly by me, was actually really good. You just always had cards in your hand, which is good for Kozilek to counter things and also just to be able to play things.
Yeah, I mean, I was
that was cool.
At the point where hard casting was not an impossibility, which is a pretty, like, the big thing about the mono colorless decks, being that you are always hard casting the Eldrazi. And it's just how fast you get there.
Except you weren't, Chev, because there was one point when you had an Urza's Incubator and also a Sculpting Steel, which was an Urza's Incubator, and I believe you also had an Eye of Ugin, so that's like
that's still hard casting. You know, I'm there. I'm working just as hard as everyone else to play my Ulamog.
That's not fair magic. You're not playing by the rules there.
I think it was Eric who summed it up best. One of the original times I played the colorless deck, and he said, I don't like how, colors have restrictions, and then you're there with your spaghetti monsters outside of the law of Magic doing shenanigans that should not exist. And I think, that's how I feel generally when I'm playing Kozilek.
I mean,
there was one more cool play. Oh, sorry. Just to interject really quick, there's one more cool play I wanted to highlight, and this one I'm pretty sure was by Chev, where Eric cast some really game warping spell. Probably, I'm pretty sure Chev was ahead most of that game. I know he ended up winning. It's something that would have hurt Chev a lot, and Chev went to Sensei's for a card to counter it with Kozilek, and then he tapped Sensei's to draw the card, which I knew meant he's definitely got one of the right converted mana cost to counter it, and I was like, kill Kozilek, and you're just like, I'm gonna sack this other land I have to draw the card and counter it instead. So I thought that was awesome, even though it was just like a...
Now, Cryptic Caves, that was as soon as I saw that as being the canopy land for colorless, that went in the deck the next day. I think that was from Core 20. Yeah, that's put in all kinds of work. And I run it in a lot of Brawl decks, too, I found out. Just having access to that quick card draw is a super, super useful tactic, especially in colors that don't normally have it.
Right.
So it looks like we have a late guest.
All right, I am now recording my voice, I believe. Cool. Hello, I'm happy to join the podcast. How late am I? Half an hour late. That's exactly how late.
Yep. So we just
didn't miss our main topic.
Yeah, no, we just got finished ruining your good name, talking about game night and the different games. Were there any particular plays that you enjoyed or remember from our inaugural game night last week, Eric?
Our inaugural game night, I feel like we should switch the order of events so that our inaugural game night wasn't a week ago. But
we recorded a week ago, so
let's jog your memory if we can. You turned into a complete. Yep, you turned into a complete masochist and lost all of your life to your Sunbird's Invocation. I remember that one.
Chandra's Bane.
And it was 100% worth it.
I don't think it was because you didn't win.
Okay, but I had a lot of fun.
And that's what we're about at game night.
Fair enough.
That's what Sunbird's Invocation is for. It's a little bit for winning, but it's mostly for having a lot of fun.
Ah, I see. All right, so after recapping game night and gaining a member, we now want to talk about what's happening with the next upcoming set, which is oh my god, Amonkhet just came out. We had Double Masters, we had the core set. There's just sets on sets on sets, but we want to keep pushing forward and talk about especially what we want to see in this new Zendikar set, which is coming out in exactly a month, I think, from when we're recording, which is August 18th. So we're going to go around the horn, and everyone's going to talk a little bit about what they want to see and what they expect in this set coming through. So I'm going to start out because I'm conceited like that. And the first thing that I want to see is Nahiri. So Nahiri has already been confirmed, I believe, as one of the face planeswalkers of the
Yeah, I
set.
think she has.
Last time
Yes.
we saw her was briefly on Ravnica for War of the Spark, but mainly back in Shadows over Innistrad block,
Yep.
where she was fighting Sorin
Yeah.
and like summoning Emrakul and like being on. But
Sorry.
Zendikar is Nahiri's home plane. She's all about it. That's where we first got references of her. So I want to see her come back, and I want to see her come back in a big way. She is a white-based planeswalker with also some red. I'm hoping that we get a very powerful, but not super pushed, but a very powerful, competitive sort of planeswalker. In that, just because green and blue have been so, broco over the past year and a half or so.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see
I
the
want
other
white-
colors do well.
I want powerful white cards, and I think Nahiri is kind of going to be able to lead that charge. Another thing regarding that is Nahiri has traditionally been tied with equipment, so I want to see. It would be interesting if she still did sort of something like that, and if we got some actually good, relevant equipment here. Equipment hasn't been good really since Batterskull.
Living weapon.
Yeah.
Maybe? Yeah,
I mean,
since,
it's
like,
definitely,
Batterskull.
like, it's hard. Well, it gets back into that whole thing, right, where it's hard to print equipment that's too good because then every deck will include it. And so, like, I mean, we haven't seen good equipment since Mirrodin, but I feel like, I mean, Embercleave is probably not
Embercleave.
the best
Sorry.
example.
No
But I was
cough.
going to say, yeah, like, with the cycle from Eldraine of having colored equipment, I think colored equipment could be really cool, and especially having like some white aligned equipment to go with Nahiri. Because you're right, Julian, she was first introduced as a lithomancer, I think, with heavy ties to swords and stuff.
Right. So a couple things I want to say about that. One, there was only the one colored equipment in Eldraine Chev, which was Embercleave.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I heard you, Oak. And Embercleave is incredibly relevant, but I don't consider that an equipment. That is a combo card. You play that when you're about to win. You don't play that
It
because
was
it gives you a
more.
lot of
It was
value.
more talking about Eldraine is when they officially decided they were going to start playing with colored artifacts and seeing how it affects gameplay. That would solve the problems artifacts generally have, which is if they're too good, they'll be in every deck. So based on that, and then seeing those cards and how well they perform, that led the way for colored equipment going forward.
I personally
Okay.
really like the idea of colored equipment. I think it solves one of my biggest problems with artifacts, which is that they push into areas of the color pie that it's almost like disrupt why
just
certain
don't
colors are good. And so the more like colored artifacts and colored equipment we see, the happier I'll be, personally.
Agreed. So I hope they do some stuff with equipment. Honestly, I wouldn't really even mind if they like wanted to bring back a sword or two, or maybe finish some of those that sword cycle. Especially since those are kind of inherently mid-rangey cards, and mid-range doesn't really exist right now. So if we need to, get a sword and a fire and ice or something, or finish that like Modern Horizons cycle, which had the red-black sword and the white-blue sword, to have some cool stuff and also make mid-range viable again, that's fine with me. And plus, if we need to, we can always ban things, as long as Wizards is a little more trigger happy on that,
Yeah.
as opposed to letting things sit.
Which they have
So that's
been
my first
lately.
one. They have been lately, and I hope that they fix design a little bit, but also are more willing to shake things up as opposed to letting things sit, like I said. The next thing, which is kind of just a fun thing, trap / expedition cards. So there were cards that were certain traps, and then basically if given a certain condition, you could cast them for free. So there's one that like exiled the graveyard, and there was one that like milled a bunch, and there was one that I think created like a bunch of little tokens for you to block with and stuff.
There was
these
a
were all
red
in,
like
the
deflector
original
spell.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yep.
it was just a cool sort of thing that tied into the original theme of the original Zendikar blocks, so like Zendikar and Worldwake before they added the Eldrazi, of it being like this adventure-y Indiana Jones type plane.
Yep.
There was also the expeditions, which were enchantments that basically, given a certain condition, you got quest counters, which is just a cool type of counter. And then once you had a certain amount of those things, you get, X things happen, or you get some certain sort of buff or whatever. So it'd be cool to bring those back, since this seems like the first time in a while that there's not going to be any sort of Eldrazi focus, which Chev will talk about in a bit. So it'd be cool to see those come back, especially if some of those trap cards are we're talking about Yu-Gi-Oh now. Trap cards are good things that kind of cut the legs out from some certain oppressive strategies, namely like green stuff. Last thing, talking about.
Wait, just really quickly on
Yeah.
quests. I think it'd be really interesting to see quest counters interact with a lot of the counter stuff that came out in the most recent set.
Ikoria?
Ikoria, yeah. Because there was a lot of stuff about moving counters and sort of controlling them. And so sort of seeing how those two little niches would interact with each other, I think could open up some cool stuff.
Maybe if they're like creatures with quest counters, and then you like put them on the Ozolith, and then you put them on another creature with quest counters.
Creatures with quest counters would be very cool.
Yeah, the only things I can think of are Heartless Act that could remove counters from target creature, and then the Ozolith. But unfortunately, a lot of Ikoria was adding counters, not moving them so much, because some of that was also cardinal sin of forgetting that they were from Commander 20. As opposed to the Ikoria set. Because there were some, like that land, right? There's a land that moves a counter from a creature you control onto a creature that you do or don't. But that was from Commander 20, not necessarily standard legal.
Also, I forgot that the Ozolith was creatures only. I thought it was just permanents. So that's...
it was very specific to creature counters, which makes the quest a little bit... But if creatures have the quest, wouldn't they... Was there a cycle like that in Theros? Or was that also equipment? No, that was auras, wasn't it? Oh, like you sacrifice the aura from Theros, and then like a certain thing happens?
Oh, that was...
Sure.
No, it was... Yeah, there was something. It was like one for each of the main colored gods.
Yeah.
I want to say it was like the trials. The trial of Heliod, the trial of... Thassa, etc. But yeah, there's something about you get some bonus after you sacrifice it. But anyway, getting off topic.
I've derailed this long enough.
Yeah, we've been derailed. Last thing is we're expecting landfall. It's kind of the
thing,
marquee Zendikar sort of thing. So I'm expecting it's going to happen. Given how recent formats have been regarding ramp strategies and stuff, I'm hoping that a lot of the ramp and landfall-y things that are in Zendikar are focused on putting lands onto the battlefield from your hand. So something like there's been 1,000,001 creatures that tap to put a land onto your hand. And I think this could be really cool regarding landfall triggers, which a lot of times landfall triggers are like certain buffs. There's been 1,000,000 creatures that are like, oh, landfall, this creature gets +1/+1, or landfall, this creature gets +1/+0 in first strike or something like that. So I remember a couple cards from BFZ were like random whatever, but also like put a land from your hand onto the battlefield. So things that could sort of be semi-ramp, but also sort of play into more just simple like combat tricky stuff. That stuff that almost might be good and limited, as opposed to things like cultivate and stuff that we've been getting, where it's just like we're just getting these lands out of your deck. Now necessarily, if you play this theoretical type of card that I'm proposing, either you have to have a bunch of lands in your hand because you've drawn a bunch of cards, or you're just playing a bunch more lands than normal. Something that's going to make ramp not as blatantly,
So
peaking as it
cards like Arboreal Grazer, essentially.
Exactly. I feel like that's a perfectly reasonable card because, if you hit on a bunch of Arboreal Grazers, it means you just had a bunch of lands and a bunch of Arboreal Grazers, which is whatever. You know what I mean?
Personally,
there's like there's the mana acceleration aspect to it, but also like a card disadvantage. So it's like it's a trade-off.
Right.
I think that could be good, but I am still terrified of any interaction that we have between Landfall and Azusa and Dryad of Elysia Elysian, whatever. The 2 cards that allow you to put extra lands onto the battlefield each turn. Because then, if we end up in the case where the tutors are lands to your hand, not necessarily the battlefield, we're still not doing too well in terms of, the overpowered of green. So I guess what I'm saying is I back up your point, Julian, that I really hope they're just from land to hand, or hand to battlefield, and we focus on that primarily, because anything else I think is going to get out of hand really quickly.
It's gonna get out of land.
Get out of land.
There's too many lands. There's too many hands. This hand is your hand. This hand is my hand.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm trying to be optimistic. It remains to be seen. But I know there's going to be. This is the Lands Matter Plains.
Mm-hmm.
So I want something interesting and something safe to happen.
So Julian, of course, bouncing off of that, there is a mechanic that we could bring back that would help stop a lot of this green playing too many lands all the time.
I can't even
Don't say
imagine what it is,
Annihilator.
Chev. Why don't you?
Would that be land destruction?
And that would be
Chev?
Annihilator. As we get back to
Chev, there's no way in hell.
As we get back to Eldrazi, now we know that they're not going to be on the plane, most likely. As well, it's because 2 of them are dead and 1 is a moon on a different plane. So it's kind of hard to convince anyone, including a big Eldrazi fan, that will see them in their full power. But I certainly would like to see from Zendikar some like remnants. Like we kind of saw, I think it was a one-off card from Core 20 that was like destroy target colorless creature or something. And it showed like Ob Nixilis just like smashing an Ulamog spawn. And so seeing stuff like that where we're going to see like the cleanup of the Eldrazi, or like some low-powered things, or for my Kozilek deck, if we saw any cards that kind of triggered off Eldrazi stuff, or maybe a colored commander that references Eldrazi, that's kind of what I'm about. Nothing too big. Like I'm not thinking we'll see a Return of the Titans, but I wouldn't mind seeing like allusions to the flying spaghetti monsters.
I think that's not out of turn to expect something like that. Like, they were such a big part of our most recent visit to Zendikar that I think it would be very reasonable to say, they should still be there. The Hedrons should still be there. It's like, where would they have gone?
Mm-hmm. Right. So definitely, I wouldn't want it to take center stage, because I do really like the idea of having like an adventure themed plane and having those traps and pitfalls and like Indiana Jones style thing. But I would also like to see a few more of the Eldrazi, and hopefully less of the colored variety, so I can put them in my colorless deck. Unless we get, an Eldrazi commander that would open up wonderful avenues of green or blue to me. That would be ideal. The other thing that I'm looking forward to, and I think, Julian, back to one of your previous points of like what the story is, or like what's actually going on here, I believe that Ob Nixilis has something to do with it, because like in the last time to Zendikar, he's pledged like, or vowed to destroy the Gatewatch or something like that, and he's kind of been shown in some of the previous cards, like in core sets, as kind of like a one-off here, a one-off there, kind of in the background. So I think he's still on Zendikar, and he still wants to mess some people up. And I believe, and since my first Commander deck was Commander 2014 with Ob Nixilis at the helm, I would certainly like to see him back in action and absolutely obliterating everything, as probably my favorite black-aligned Planeswalker.
He was in War of the Spark, right?
Yes.
Do we know what happened to him after that?
I believe, my memory is going to be more the novelization, and I thought it was like he was on Amonkhet with Tezzeret, and hopefully, someone can correct me if I'm wrong. He was on Amonkhet with Tezzeret, and the others like getting the Eternal Army over there, and then once they got over there, he just like peaced out. But I don't think he was on the good guy's side. So I think he was working for Nico Bolas, but I think he just kind of peaced out. I don't think anything really bad happened to him.
He actually got jebaited, just like everyone else, to Ravnica, and then tracked with the Immortal Sun. I just Googled this. I don't have this encyclopedic knowledge. And he fought against Bolas.
Oh, did he? Oh, probably because he felt trapped.
Wow.
Yeah, because he was annoyed.
Yeah, he was just mad. He did not like the Gatewatch still.
Yeah.
He was essentially unaffiliated. He just wanted to leave.
Okay. Oh, so he did end up going to Amonkhet, according to Gamepedia. But he was on the good guy's side, and he helped destroy everything.
To Ravnica.
Well, so he got to Ravnica, but then they took the planar bridge that Nicobola stole to Amonkhet because they had opened that portal to get the Eternal Army from Amonkhet to Ravnica. So by this point, Nixilis had absorbed the souls of thousands of Eternals, greatly increasing his power and causing his body to double in size. And Nixilis incinerated a bunch of Eternals, and then Hazaret came by and said
that
thanks.
art of Gideon riding on his head?
Yep. And then, oh no, that's not.
Oh, that was.
No, I don't think he was.
That was not Nixilis.
Yeah, that wasn't.
That was
Nixilis'
Rakdos.
That was Rakdos.
Yep.
Either way, that was.
Nixilis was.
I would argue is a cooler demon than Nixilis. Like I'm a big Rakdos fan.
Rakdos does do some cool stuff.
Once again, I've derailed the conversation. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, he left once everyone was like, "Oh no, we have to finish Nicobola's now," and he was like, "No, I got my power. I'm out."
Just a salty boy.
He's just he's had like he didn't have a spark, then he got his spark, then his spark was like taken away, and a hedron was like put in his forehead or something. He's had a rough go at it.
Yeah, he's kind of got the short end of the stick.
But yeah, I think
I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for that meddling Gatewatch.
I think that's it for me. I want to see Eldrazi and I want to see Ob Nixilis. I want to see the things that destroy Zendikar every chance they get.
Of course.
Terrible.
Yeah, so I guess I'll go next. I guess the first thing I'll do is address the elephant in the room, or rather the elemental in the room. Omnath, new Omnath. There's gonna be another one, apparently. Yep. It's been confirmed. And he's going to be white.
Yep. Yeah, he's gonna have
in addition to his previous colors.
So he's gonna be 4 colors.
So,
yep.
Yeah.
If you can't tell, Eric, they're adding a color every time it shows up.
Oh, I can tell. However, given that for the 4-color commander set, they were like, this was legitimately so hard, we could only make 4 of them, or we could only make 5 of them, and then for the rest we had to go to partners. We can't functionally design more creatures. So I'm interested.
Well, it'll be interesting. We'll see what Omnath got going on.
Yeah. So in my personal opinion, every new iteration of Omnath up to this point has been better than the last. And I kind of hope it continues on that trend. I'm not big into 4 colors, especially when the missing color is not white or blue. But you never know. They could make him cost a green, and then maybe he has activated abilities for the other 3, or as far as I know. But yeah, hopefully it continues on the upward trend, and we haven't seen the apex of Omnath design just yet. One thing I know my man Omnath loves is lands, and contrary to the beliefs of some, I'm actually a big fan of lands myself. I think conceptually they're really cool, and I think they're what sets Magic apart from a lot of other card games Hearthstone.
Oh, for sure, yeah.
Yep. The ability to manipulate lands, to destroy lands, to turn lands into other things, to accelerate your land base, having different colors in lands, and the ups and downs that come with that. So obviously I'm looking for more land-based mechanics. And another I guess general, I'd say, besides Omnath that I am sort of hoping to see on this new plane is Noyandar. He is one of the 4 commander decks I have constructed in paper right now, and while I wasn't necessarily the most happy with how he turned out in his current iteration, it's always cool to see another form. The thing I'm worried about is that if he does come back, he might be mono blue or perhaps blue green with the way that Merfolk have been recently. But yeah, he's someone I'd really love to see.
I think Merfolk, depending on the plane they are different colors, and so I think for Zendikar, Merfolk are blue-white. I think it's a very specific thing. It's what is it? Theros that they're blue-green.
There's also another plane where
Ixalan.
Ixalan, yeah. There's one plane where Merfolk are traditionally blue-black.
Shadowmoor.
Yeah, Shadowmoor.
But yeah, I think they're one of the tribes that really changes between planes.
Right.
Unlike,
well,
goblins.
Yep.
Let's go to a plane with blue-aligned goblins. It's all the wizards.
I would
Oh, God.
love that. Play. Be hilarious.
That would be sick. Yep. So yeah, New Noindar would be awesome. The last Zendikar set we got showed us the introduction of a certain cycle of lands many call the battle lands, or as I and some others like to call them, the bad dual lands, which were two typed lands that essentially just need they'll come in untapped if there's two other basics on the under your control already. And I'm kind of hoping to see them finish that cycle of lands, which in this case I believe would be the enemy colors that they'd be printing if they were to
That
finish
would
it,
be really nice,
since the
considering
last...
3 of
Yep.
my 5 commander decks are enemy colored 2-color. So I've
Yep.
any lands I can get for those guys, they're desperate.
Yep. Enemy color lands just, they don't see as much love and support as
Nope.
the allied colored lands for sure. And I think these are a pretty good, like, sort of compensation land. Like, usually, like, late game, you can get these out untapped, regardless of what you're playing, and you can get them on a budget.
Definitely.
Which I really like. Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe these shock lands are rotating
Yep,
out.
all
so
shock lands are
there's
rotating.
So there's gonna have to be something big to replace those, because otherwise we'll just be stuck with the temples, I suppose.
Have you considered more
And the
shocks?
triumphs.
What if they just printed more
Oh, that's
shocks?
true. The triumphs, right? Yep. On Zendikar, anything's possible, man.
I think the shocks are sort of reserved for Ravnica, but
Well,
Maybe.
Yep.
they go back and forth. Their naming scheme is unique or not unique for the purpose that they could be on other planes, but I could also definitely see Wizards being like, all right, we had shocks for quite some time. Let's take a quick breather before we bring them back.
Right. Yeah, I could see it going
I
either
wouldn't
way.
want to see shocks immediately
but-
come back after rotating, because it just seems like I'd rather find new and interesting lands for them to explore, or at least reprint older lands that haven't gotten the love recently.
Yeah, there was
Yeah, I think I'm in the same.
there was a
boat
tinge of
there.
sarcasm in me suggesting they immediately bring shocks back. I don't think that would be good.
Yep. Yeah, so, more on the topic of lands, something I'm honestly, anticipating Wizards to do, but not necessarily really looking forward
they
to
are-
is, I imagine...
Yeah, they're doing full
Pardon?
arts.
There are? Okay, that's been
Yeah,
confirmed
it was
already?
confirmed
Yeah.
in the
So-
boosters. It's going to be a special slot that is just full art lands.
Okay. Well, I'm not going to say that's unfortunate, because, more art's always good. And I know I've talked about you guys with this in the past, but I feel like Wizards has kind of been overkilling it recently with the full art lands. They're really just not as special as they used to be. I feel like this all kind of started in a Monket, which was the first set to have full arts after the second Battle for Zendikar. Well, okay, sorry, excluding
Unglued,
like the
unhinged,
onsets. Yeah. But still, it was a very infrequent thing, and then all of a sudden, like after Monket, I feel like it just became like we got full arts and
Oh
everything.
yeah, no, it's
So,
totally ridiculous. Like, I remember how excited we were to see the full arts when they were represented from BFZ, and there was definitely some excitement when they were a little bit harder to get for Amonkhet. But now it's like full arts come out, and you're just like, oh, that's cool. Like, moving on.
Yeah, it's like
Even if Theros
it's almost
has them,
like
and
you
you're like,
expect
it's
it.
an interesting concept, but I don't know why we need them.
Yeah, exactly. So, the last thing I'd like to talk about is I'm actually gonna go out on a limb and disagree with Chev on wanting to see more Eldrazi stuff, and I'm not just saying that because the last game of Commander I played was a loss to Chev's Eldrazi deck. Honestly, the Eldrazi's pretty much been what Zendikar's been all about up until this point, and I'm kind of just ready to move on from it. I wouldn't want to. That said, I wouldn't want to pretend like it never happened and see nothing like whatsoever to do with Eldrazi, but I think I could stand for no Eldrazi creatures in the next set. But that's just my personal opinion. I wouldn't mind seeing some like relics, or I'm not sure if we brought this up, but like a shrine of the Forsaken Gods
Ooh,
type thing.
I would love
where
to see
it
one of those.
kind of alludes to them being there.
Keep it to the flavor text.
Yep. Oh yeah. You know it. And yeah, I think that's just about it for me. I'll pass it off to our newest person joining us on the podcast,
hi.
Eric.
I'm Eric. I write the CEDH articles, specifically the Top Shelf. I don't have a ton of experience in Standard currently. Most of my work is involved in sort of more Eternal formats, and I'm actually going to start off with referencing Modern. The first Modern deck I ever built was Allies because I thought it was super cool. And I would be really interested to actually see what's going on with the Allies at this point.
That's true.
Now that there are no Eldrazi to fight, and now that there are no gigantic battles against these mind-bending monstrosities, what are the alliances up to? Is Allies still going to be a tribe? Is it still going to be something that's relevant? I don't think we've learned anything about that as of right now, but I think it'd be cool to see sort of what's happening with Allies. In fact, I sort of was just doing some research on this a little bit earlier. The introduction of multicolored cards really only began with Allies and with the Devoid Eldrazi in Zendikar, even back to sort of when we were first introduced to the plane. It was so now that the alliances are gone, will we not get allied colors, or will the alliances still be there, and will we have more allied colors, or maybe even tricolors? So I'm really interested to see what's going on with that, and I sort of hinted at what I want to talk about next, which is, will there be multicolored cards? In the first 3 sets of on the plane of Zendikar, there were no multicolored cards. Then when we came back for Battle for Zendikar, that was when they started showing multicolored. So I think it's going to be cool to see if there still are multicolored cards as a part of this set. I think it'd be very strange to see a modern set released or a standard set released where everything was one color. But
well, I think it would look a lot like the was it Core or one of them, where it was like there was the 10 multicolor signposts and rare creatures that had multicolors, but then other than that, it was just pretty much all monocolored. So you're right. I think they would have like a couple cards that were multicolored just to make it kind of like split. Yeah, it was Core 21. They have like 10 signpost uncommons, and then like rares are generally creatures, so those span. But anything kind of outside of that in the commons and uncommons was monocolored.
Yeah, I think it'd be cool to see a set where they either go back and double down and say, no, you know what, every other set we do sort of where the colors cross in this interesting intersection, we're going to just go hard on each section of the color pie and really look in on that section. Or see them go the other way.
I guess we know at this point at least that we're getting a multicolored Omnath, so
yeah,
you know.
And that's gonna.
But who knows what else?
Yeah,
is in store.
that's gonna actually lead into my final thing that I want to say is show me the Commander gas. I just want more gas. I think that there's a lot of cool commanders and legendary creatures that we've seen on Zendikar, including some very powerful commanders that are very good in competitive EDH. But even in regular EDH and in Brawl, which I'm sure Chev is excited about, I want to see cool commanders. I want to see commanders that change how you build decks. That's always what I'm on the lookout for. So I'm just as excited as Oak is for a 4-color Omnath, because currently 4-colored options are limited to the blight that is Thrasios and Tymna, and then a couple other really powerful creatures. But yeah, I'm just really excited to see what kind of commanders they put out and what new characters we get to meet in the form of legendary creatures.
Are there any faces from Magic's history you're maybe looking to see printed on a legendary card, or in the new set, like Noyan, I guess, for example, or maybe like Drana?
Yeah.
Omnath.
I think I would actually be interested to see Zadahedron Grinder is a really cool legendary creature. And I would want to see her again sort of after the war. I don't know if she technically survived the war in the lore.
Give her more colors.
What?
Give her
Yeah.
more colors. I love Zada, and give her more colors.
If you
Make her like a red black.
if you showed me
commander,
like a
or
red black
Grixis
or a red
commander.
white Zada, I'm here.
A Mardu Zada?
Oh.
Can we get it?
They, like I said, they really have been tight with their colors on Zendikar. So now that they're busting out 4-color Omnath, if we're starting to see like wedges and shards, thank you, Eric Brain, a little
Shards.
slow.
Yeah.
If we're starting to see wedges and shards, I want to see a Bant commander that deals with counters. All 3 colors in Bant individually love counters and do a bunch of things with them. We've never had a Bant counters matter commander. And I want to see an Abzan Enchantress commander, because that also doesn't exist. And all of those colors also love enchantments.
That would be sweet. So,
I want to see my man Bruce Tarl from.
Brew.
Gotta
Get Bruce in
get him
here,
back.
toss some green
He's,
in there, boom, new Naya commander, let's get it.
Oh yeah.
That's
That
the
would be
last
sick.
thing that you need, Eric. You're an addict.
I don't have a problem because I refuse to recognize it as such.
Okay, so real quick, let's 2 things I want to say. One, allies, please, because I really want to play Collected Company and Historic with allies. I think that would be super
Julie, you and I
sweet.
can build that deck together.
And also, when it happens, we're doing it. I'm already starting to look at Collected Company lists, so let's discuss, but not right now. The other thing is, Chev and I were talking about this earlier. There are 2 more commander decks that are coming out with the release of Zendikar.
Mm-hmm.
And Eric, you
Oh.
just mentioned a few of the things that you might want to see. I think you're right. I think they are going to be pretty stringent with their color use in the actual set, but for the commander product, I think all bets are off.
Do you think that could be where Omnath is
So-
coming from? Or do you think he will be in the standard legal set?
Ooh,
That would be very interesting.
I
Yeah.
But I would think he has to go through standard. Like, I think it's too well known a character, and everyone's too excited for Omnath to have it short circuit standard completely.
well, 2 things, Chev. 2 things. One, I don't know if there's mana support for a 4-color Omnath
Mm-hmm.
directly.
Especially with the shocks coming.
Yeah.
Yeah. The elemental support that was present in M20 is not going to be there anymore. So I don't know if there's going to be an elementals deck.
Mm.
And commander is such a big thing. I actually would not be surprised if
If
he
that's where they
was,
put it. Yeah.
Yeah, or if he was like the buy a box promo or something.
Oh, yeah.
Ooh.
No, totally. Like, there was a Tezzeret that was like a buy a box that had completely nothing connected to the set at all. Right? I played against a Brawl deck with him. He gave artifacts affinity.
Yes, that was.
What the-
I think that was the M21.
That might have been.
Because I think Tezzeret was the blue planeswalker in M20.
No, he was War of the Spark.
Oh.
That's when he came out, and he was like 6 mana. Creatures and planeswalker spells you cast have affinity for artifacts.
That's
Holy
Yeah.
crap.
Deals X damage to each opponent, where X is the number of artifacts. Return target artifact. Exile top 10. Put all artifacts. So yeah, like completely no connection to the set whatsoever, besides the fact we know Tezzeret was part of the War of the Spark. But yeah, it could be totally something like an unrelated buy a box promo because everyone loves Omnath.
I mean, I'm all for slowly advancing Omnath into full 5-color range. I know that once they finally hit 5 colors, I will probably brew, and then Oak will probably actually beat me to making it a paper, a 5-color Omnath that has all 4 others in it.
have we
But,
considered?
Yeah, how they actually go about releasing it, I don't know. But anyway, once again, train derailed. Eric, you mentioned a few different things. Is there anything else that you guys want to see that might come out of the Commander set? Because there's only 2 decks, not a full 5. But they are releasing right with Zendikar, so it's like they're kind of on our doorstep. And we haven't even thought about them.
Oh, yeah. Oh, jeez. That's
The
weird
only
to
other
think
thing I'll
about.
add is I think it'd be really interesting to see, sort of in the style of like the old like versus packages and in the style of like the Commander versus
dual
deck
decks.
that you created. I think it'd be super cool to see like mono black Obnixilis versus 4-color Omnath, and you get contrasting colors, you get contrasting ideas. I think it'd be
That
a
would
sweet
be
product.
pretty sweet. That would be a way to
Wait.
cover all the colors.
Yep.
That's like
I know.
I can like see that happening. I'm gonna actually be like really pissed off. If
By
that's
the way,
actually
Wizards, I'm
one
available
because
for hire.
you'll have like one because you have called it, but also I'm just like, oh boy, if that's really what they do,
Yo.
that mono black deck
Um,
has to have some heaters then.
Oh yeah.
If you're putting all 4 colors in the other deck,
Well, remember they
Yo.
would be built to the same power level, so like it would only need as many heaters as they give the other 4 colors.
And the 4-color deck would be limited by the fact that they're going to be like, hey, here's a bunch of shitty tap lands that give you a life when you play them. You're like, I don't want any of this. Which they do with every Commander product where the Commander has more than 2
Although
colors.
in their defense, last time we saw 4 color in a Commander deck, the land bases were pretty solid.
They did do their best for that one, and I appreciated that a lot.
true.
Yeah.
But since then it's been
Right, since then it's been
Not
less
as good.
ideal.
Yo.
yeah. I don't know. I'm concerned about what's going to happen because I think that they're going to want to and need to cover all 5 colors. But then I think the way that they split it up is either going to be weirdly unequal, like what you proposed, Eric, or one of that, like, if it's like Simic versus Mardu, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's kind of clear cut. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what they do. I think this is a good chance for them to reprint a lot of things that they don't normally, though. Like things like, I mean, Soul Ring and Command Tower always get reprinted, but like maybe a Chromatic Lantern, maybe
Yeah.
a Lightning Greaves because they always reprint Swiftfoot Boots, things like that. I feel like that would be a good shot, especially since these are just like 2 decks, and you can just give both of them those sort of things. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think they would only be limited by the fact that Commander Legends, or the Commander draftable set that was supposed to come out in like the end of October, might have a lot of those cards in it, and so they might limit the number of reprints.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
we can see so far that it hasn't been a
just so
problem
many
as we've
things.
seen things be reprinted across Mystery Booster, Jumpstart, and then Double Masters currently. This might be a shift in the policy they take towards reprints.
Yeah. Well, anyway. Is there anything else you guys wanted to discuss regarding upcoming Zendikar, upcoming Commander, or anything else?
I think that's about it from the things
Yeah.
that we've been thinking.
Yeah, I'm all set. Also, nice to meet all of you.
All right.
Nice to meet you too,
Yeah.
Eric.
I think
Good to talk to all of you for the first time. I'm speaking to our many listeners, by the way. So take it easy.
I see. All right, then maybe I won't cut it out. This podcast is going to come out. It's going to be like 45 minutes shorter than the actual runtime. All right. Well, if that's everything, I think we'll wrap it up, and we'll be back next week to do the thing again. So this has been Jules. We have Chev. We have Eric. We have Oak. We're super happy that you guys listen, and this is us signing
Yeah.
out.
Peace.
Peace.